The cordon here signals yet another major incident in the capital. Once again, many Londoners woke to distressing news. Once again, a man appears to have hired a van, then deliberately ploughed it into a crowd. This time, that crowd was Muslim worshippers. The Prime Minister has described it as a terror attack every bit as sickening as the others this city and this country has suffered in the last 3 months. This report from our political correspondent Simon Harris contains some distressing images.
The man on his hands and knees in the road is London's latest terror suspect. He's being restrained to stop him escaping after a van hit a group of Muslim worshippers shortly after midnight. The victims were knocked down as they gave first aid to an elderly man who'd collapsed. Eyewitnesses said it was no accident.
This is deliberate. They did it on purpose. It's something, he wasn't drunk or anything like that. It was something accident. Accidents do happen, but you don't run over 6-7 people.
The suspect is pinned to the ground.
No one touched him, no one.
An imam tries to calm the growing anger.
No one.
By now, the suspect is being restrained against a police van. The elderly man who was being given first aid has died. 10 others are injured. 8 of them will need to be taken to hospital.
There was one right in front of me. There was literally blood coming out of his head. There was another one on my right-hand side. He was laying on the floor. The woman that I saw, like in front of her car, I rushed towards her without even seeing my brother on the floor.
As the handcuffed suspect is put into the back of the police van, he waves. This is an area where even late at night, coffee shops and cafes are busy with Muslim customers allowed to break their Ramadan fast after sunset. There are 2 mosques close by, the Finsbury Park Mosque and the Muslim Welfare House. It was just along from there on the main Seven Sisters Road where the van mounted the pavement. Abdul Rahman Idris narrowly avoided being hit and then tackled the driver as he tried to run away.
He was saying, shouting, I want to kill more Muslims, I want to kill more Muslims. And then there were other people running after him, trying to catch him.
While you pinned him on the ground, did you talk to him? Did you find out?
I talked to him. I said, why did you do that? I asked him this question, which from my heart. I said, why have you done that? Innocent people underneath the van.
The area around this latest attack took on the all too familiar appearance of a major crime scene. A police cordon is in place, streets are closed, and politicians arrived with messages of reassurance.
These have been a terrible few weeks for London, unprecedented in recent times. We've seen the horror of the fire at Grenfell Tower. We've seen the attack on London Bridge, and before that Westminster Bridge, and we saw last night the terrorist attack here in Seven Sisters. We will stay a strong city.
The Prime Minister was determined not to repeat the misjudgment of last week. She visited Finsbury Park Mosque within hours of the attack.
The terrible terrorist attack that took place last night was an evil act born out of hatred, and it has devastated a community.
The local MP for this area is Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn.
The best way, in fact the only way of defeating this is the unity of all of our communities. I'm proud to represent Finsbury Park with all its 50 or 60 languages that are spoken, with all the faiths that are here.
For the 3rd time in 3 months, the terrorists have chosen to hit London. Westminster Bridge and London Bridge were the work of Islamist fanatics, but this is different. Here, the Muslim community was the clear target. Simon Harris, ITV News, Finsbury Park.
Thank you, Charlene. Let's get more now on the terror attack, and I'm joined, as you can see, by Simon Harris, who's down at the scene now. What's the latest you're hearing on the suspect?
Well, we've had some more details in the last hour. He has been named, not officially by the police, but locally in Wales, from where he comes from, as Darren Osborne, who's 47 years old and a father of 4. The Welsh connection became pretty apparent straight away. The van used in the attack here in Finsbury Park had been hired from a van hire company in a small area just to the north of Cardiff. Mr. Osborne was arrested at the scene here after being detained, as we saw earlier, by some of those Muslim worshippers who were injured or came close to being injured. He was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. He has now been re-arrested on suspicion of murder and on suspicion of committing terrorism offences.
What about the security for the Muslim community tonight? After the Manchester bomb, we saw the army on the streets. We've seen armed officers after the London Bridge attack. What's happening to reassure them?
Well, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, said today that there would be an increased police presence outside mosques and places of worship, and the Commissioner of the Met, Cressida Dick, has announced that borough commanders at police stations across London now have the power and authority to cancel police officers' leave if need be.
Incredible times. Simon Harris, thank you very much. Well, before last night, the capital's emergency services were already stretched. Before last night, London's hospitals were still treating those injured in the London Bridge terror attack and, of course, in the Grenfell fire. Elsewhere, though, if you look around this city, life, for the most part, is continuing as normal. It has to. But that doesn't mean the suffering of fellow Londoners isn't very much on all of our minds, which was apparent at the memorial to the 7/7 victims a little earlier today. To the latest on the attack in Finsbury Park now, it emerged late last night that the police in Wales were alerted to a man who appeared to be asleep in a van the day before the attack in London. Today, CCTV footage shows a van matching the description of the van used in the attack near the suspect's house near Cardiff. We'll have more on that from Wales in just a moment. First, from Finsbury Park, here's our correspondent, Simon Harris.
The search for clues at a terrorist crime scene can often be slow and painstaking, lasting days. In Finsbury Park, the police cordon was lifted less than 24 hours after the attack. Friends of Makram Ali, the man who died, left flowers and messages of support for his family. This is Wadcote Street, the short cul-de-sac where Mr. Ali died and where the other victims were injured. After running over the men, the hire van was stopped in its tracks by this row of bollards. You can see one of them is missing. Moments before the attack, Mr. Ali was being given first aid after collapsing in the street, but was said to be recovering when the van drove over him.
He fainted. It was a very hot day, coming late prayers, and he was tired, so he fainted. Some people gathered to comfort him. He was given water and stuff like this, but he was 100% conscious when the attack happened.
Darren Osborne, the man said to be behind the wheel of the van, is under arrest on suspicion of planning terrorist offences and attempted murder. His home in Cardiff was being searched today. As it emerged, police may have come into contact with him the day before. Officers in South Wales were alerted to a drunk man lying across the seats of a similar van. CCTV footage shows the van later driving away. In Finsbury Park last night, London's mayor joined worshippers at the Muslim Welfare House, the mosque closest to the scene of the attack.
I want to thank and pay tribute to the local community, the Muslim community, whose response last night was an example to everyone. The fact that it was local Muslims from this congregation who conducted a citizen's arrest of the driver of the van.
Tonight, Yasin Hirsi, one of the victims, described the aftermath of the van ploughing into him.
I try and stand up. There's a guy who lying down next to me, having a lot of bleeding on his head, and the other guy was unconscious, lying down there. I look around. I try and help with the guys, and then I try to stand up. I look myself and say, look, nothing wrong with you. Why don't you help the guys? So I didn't know my leg was broken.
Mr. Hirsi knows how lucky he is to be alive. Simon Harris, ITV News, Finsbury Park.
But first, Sadiq Khan set out ambitious plans to reduce London's dependency on cars today. He wants to achieve a zero-emission transport system by 2050. It's part of the Mayor's transport strategy, which includes cutting car journeys, reducing parking spaces and considering making drivers pay for every mile they drive. But, as our political correspondent Simon Harris explains, it's not gone down well with everyone.
When Tower Bridge opened, the horse and cart was king of the road. For most of its 100-year history, the bridge has echoed to the sound of the internal combustion engine. But if London's mayor gets his way, the era of petrol and diesel is coming to an end.
Well, we've got to move people away from polluting vehicles to first clean vehicles, then completely clean vehicles, which is what a zero-emission vehicle is.
So the end of petrol and diesel vehicles in London?
Well, we're going to encourage over a period of the next 25 years to get people to walk, cycle, use clean public transport or use clean forms of vehicles. The dependency on cars has to reduce.
The Mayor's transport strategy would also see new road tolls where drivers pay per mile. He wants 80% of journeys to be on foot, bike or public transport. And he's looking to ban or restrict car parking spaces in new housing developments. Underpinning the Mayor's strategy is one key objective: encouraging Londoners to give up their cars and take up walking or cycling instead. This derelict retail park at Mill Hill in North London will soon be replaced by almost 700 flats, but almost half of them won't have a parking space. John Gillett from the local Neighbourhood Forum thinks the Mayor's determination to drive cars off the streets makes no sense in the outer suburbs.
You've not got the facilities here to easily walk to a station. There are a couple of buses, but they're not that frequent. They are providing some cycle spaces, which is fine for those that want to cycle. But by definition, Mill Hill is hilly. It's named accordingly.
Electric vehicles, or EVs, might be the answer if motorists can be persuaded to drop their misgivings.
One of the reasons why motorists are not flocking towards pure electric vehicles is simply because they don't have confidence in the infrastructure and they don't have confidence in the range of the vehicles.
But the French company, which imported an electric car hire scheme from Paris, thinks it's only a matter of time before Londoners make the switch.
We have money available right now to deliver in a year, for instance, up to 6,000 charge points to support EV uptake, to have more EVs cars to clean the road here in London.
If the Mayor is successful, all petrol and diesel vehicles will have vanished from Greater London by 2050. Simon Harris, ITV News, Central London.